What is up, homies? Welcome back to another trailer reaction from Heroes Reforged. We are watching the final trailer for Venom: The Last Dance. I don't really know how to feel about this movie. I'm so up and down with this Venom trilogy. Like the first one, second one I wasn't really into.
I floated this by Adam because I was like, Augustine's on vacation right now. How about if we knock this out and spare him from a little of Venom: The Last Dance? Adam said yes. No, in all seriousness, I also wanted to watch this trailer because I had something from this trailer spoiled for me. Just because I was on the internet today. I want to see what this is. You know, I'm going to go see this movie for sure, but I am like Adam, very up and down, mixed feelings about the entire Sony's Spider-Man approach. But Tom Hardy's fun to watch in these movies. So this is I would say the first Venom movie's probably been the highlight.
Before we get into the reaction, check out all the uncut reactions for all the stuff that we're watching on Patreon. That's where the after party is at. We'll be watching Venom and Venom, whatever the sequel's called, I already forgot.
Let There Be Carnage.
That one, yep, that one. We'll be watching that in anticipation for this third film. And then I'm sure eventually once this movie comes out on digital, we'll probably watch it too, just to get a little bit of a refresher to see exactly what our for sure finite Letterboxd ranking will be.
Yeah. Yeah, and in case people don't know, Adam's talking about we watch these movies and we film ourselves and we have a completely uncut reaction that lives on our Patreon.
Girthy.
We have so much stuff on there. It would be even worth it for you to explore that girth, even for just a 1 month. Consider it. So consider it. It's the best way to support this channel so that we can keep expanding our girth, as they say. All right, you ready to watch this?
Yup, here we go.
This is your captain speaking. If you look out to your left, you'll see a beautiful view of the Grand Canyon.
Oh my God. Stupid. Oh my God. Jesus. Okay, that's one way to start the trailer.
Come on, Venom. Okay.
My home has found us.
Who sent that thing?
My creator.
Of course.
Yeah.
Isn't that a character called Null?
Yes. The god of the symbiotes.
Huh.
What?
Oh, they're actually gonna show Null.
There he is.
No.
No.
Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice.
As long as Venom lives, everything will end.
What are we doing?
We need a disguise.
Hey, man.
Oh my God.
Why do you keep knocking people out? What is wrong with you?
Jesus.
We've come a long way, you and me. But we are strong.
The world can't survive if you stay together.
Jesus.
But I need him.
Yeah, Venom Horse, let's go.
Uh-huh.
We are bad people.
There we are.
There comes a time in every man's life.
Seems like most of the movie is set in Las Vegas.
Right?
Eddie, I'm with you to the end.
I mean, they definitely didn't hold anything back with this one. It's all on the table.
Yeah.
No, this is all the money that we have.
What is this feeling? It's like
This feeling?
It's like all.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I think that's what I'm like sometimes when I go to Vegas.
You broke my foot.
Eddie, I need more money.
Jesus.
Wild.
Listen, if anything, the movie's just gonna be the most insane, batshit crazy, adrenaline pumping adventure.
And I want it to be that. Again, I have such mixed feelings. Also, first of all, I should say, I don't know if the writer who created that character, Null, is going to be paid or was paid in any capacity. He's a really brilliant comic book writer named Donny Cates. and the co-creator of Null is an artist named Ryan Stegman. And they pulled out, and I only just recently like read all this stuff for the first time, the sort of Eddie Brock Venom saga that they did over a long period of time. They pulled out one of the best modern Marvel comic book storylines. So this was spoiled for me. I just saw somebody else online say that the Null character and these storylines from these specific Venom comics have already been adapted in a video game and now in this movie, and these comics are not even 10 years old. It's very impressive that these stories struck this much of a chord, because if you read those stories, you really feel like, dang, I think I'm reading the best possible Venom Eddie Brock storyline ever. Like, it's very, very compelling. And it's not just to do with Null. It has to do with Eddie Brock, his relationships, his history, his upbringing, his family, his whole deal. I'm very like mixed feelings on this because I want these movies to be bonkers, and it feels like they do market them as kind of like a comedy action movie. Like, you're going to see Tom Hardy be outrageous, and I'm all for that. This movie almost feels like, and I know this is weird because the movie I'm about to say is kind of feels like a ripoff of Venom, but it's like that movie Upgrade, where it's like a guy who's out of control of his own body. You know, that just felt like a sort of a Venom knockoff. Awesome. But it's really like fun to watch. It's really, really fun. And so I want these movies to be that, but I also want them to like, well, if you're going to make a Venom movie and you apparently don't have access to Peter Parker or Spider-Man or anything, like, what can you really do? Well, they used Carnage, and they've got, Riot is another character that may appear in this one. Or I don't know if I'm thinking of Toxin might appear in this one, but Riot was like the villainous symbiote from the first movie played by Riz Ahmed. And now that they're pulling in Null, my comic book brain is going, yeah, that's what I would have done, because that's like the best you can do with Venom from his comic book lore. But the thing that I'm still bummed about is I'm like, man, it would have been rad to see Null ever someday, maybe one day explored in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where they have access to the rest of the stuff. Because, for example, Null creates a sword that later Gore the God Butcher ends up using. Those two things are connected. The Necro Sword. And they already have Gore the God Butcher was in Thor Love and Thunder, and he used the sword, and fans were like, it would be cool if one day Marvel Studios could reveal that sword is actually the weapon that the God of the Symbiotes used, or that he created, or whatever. That kind of like connectivity could just lead to like fun story stuff. It's awesome that they're doing Null, but I am also like, damn it, because we won't get to have that be part of the Marvel franchise. This is Marvel licensed by Sony. This is
Marvel adjacent.
Yeah.
Let me just read off some tweets from Donnie Cates for you. First one from 5 hours ago. You guys, I just had the weirdest dream. 4 hours ago, which was an hour later, LOL. In the Venom typography, just a giant graphic that says money.
Good.
And then an hour after that, he quote retweets a tweet from another account that says, Norman Reedus will play Null in Venom 3. And his tweet says, no notes, with a GIF. I'm strangely comfortable with it. So there you go.
I know that when you, with these comic book companies, Marvel or DC, if you create a character, like if a character is created and you are considered the creator or co-creator of that character, you're the writer that came up with it, you're the artist who designed it, and it finds its way into something other than those comics from Marvel or DC, that's where the big bucks are. That's what my understanding is. Like, that's an actual way to, but the bummer of it is I'll give you an example. Ed Brubaker created the Winter Soldier, but he technically didn't create Bucky. So he does not get paid, I don't think, for creating the Winter Soldier, And I've also heard of these weird sort of feedback loops where, like, loopholes where a character, feedback loops, where a character creates a character like Killer Frost, for example, was on the Flash TV show. That creator doesn't get paid because it's like, well, they didn't create Killer Frost. They created the Caitlin Snow version of Killer Frost, which is different than the original character Killer Frost. But then the original creator wouldn't get paid for the original Killer Frost, the male character, because the TV show is going, well, we're using Caitlin Snow. We're not using the original. So there's this like loophole. I don't know how much of that stuff is accurate. I don't know. But I have heard that comic book creators that are working for the big companies, that's why you see, certain writers that might get out of the comic book world and they find their way into producing this stuff. All of a sudden you see a lot of the characters that they created show up in the shows or cartoon shows or movies that they're producing, because there's a little bit of a deal of like, if you create a character, you get this much money, you get this much of a bonus, you get the credit, you get the whatever. You
Right.
appear in the special thanks, whatever. So I'm hoping that he's been done right by him and Ryan Stegman. And I'm also hoping that this movie comes out and people like it, that they'll actually seek out these stories because they're really effing good, dude. They're
Right.
really, I was like blown away with how good the Null stuff is.
Mhm.
It's super cool, but it's also so contextually different than anything in these Tom Hardy Venom movies. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to incorporate it. You know what I mean? It's just so different. But
well, and it's,
movie looks fun.
especially when you think about like these movies are very much a movie by movie sort of like creation. They're not necessarily sitting down with a team of writers to break story on a trilogy arc necessarily.
Right.
You know, and even guys like Christopher Nolan didn't do that, but they're very much taking into consideration like what specific little details, what sort of like ramifications those little details have on the greater universe that they're building out. And I feel like with Venom, they don't really care about any of that stuff. It is kind of like it's flavor of the week. It's a little bit like what would be cool, what would be fun, what would get asses in seats. And they can't use Spider-Man obviously because of the shared deal with Disney. So it's like, cool, let's put Carnage in the sequel. What do we do in the third one? I don't know. We should probably figure out how to wrap it up. Let's put Null because he's the creator, So it's really hard for people like us. I feel like it's hard to get fully invested into the universe and into whatever world building they're trying to do because
We take
it's
it too
finite.
seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Right.
it's only going to
That
last
too,
for a certain amount of time. It's not going to go on forever. It's probably only going to be 3 movies if they get lucky enough that it does well at the box office to make 3. And it's really not going to expand outward that much more. And that's kind of what's happened with all these Sony's movies. And anytime they make any sort of attempt to go outside of that movie's character's world, it immediately gets like squashed. And we never talk about it again, like with Michael Keaton. So
yeah,
I'm totally fine with these movies being very much their own trilogy where it's just about Venom's story. And I'm like, great, that's fine. You don't want to put Spider-Man, or you can't put Spider-Man, whatever the case may be, fine. Moving forward, whatever you decide that you want to do with Venom, you should consider making it part of your deal with Disney so you can incorporate Tom Holland into that. Because I don't know,
agree.
what else do you do with Venom after you do this trilogy that would feel any different than what they're doing here unless they completely do a tonal shift? And at that point, like, is that even exciting? Like, Venom's not Batman. Batman, you can kind of do a bunch of different things and pull from different stories.
Right.
I don't know personally if Venom has that much material to really like pull from to do 8 different iterations of it at the same time, and they all feel very unique and different, so that's the hard part.
I agree that you're exactly right. The hard part is that these movies and other movies that have been in this position too, like some of the Fox X-Men movies, for example, they do enough of this right, and they do enough of the characters justice that like it's not like a Joel Schumacher to Christopher Nolan Batman scenario where Joel Schumacher's Batman movies, people didn't like those. They were very campy. So when Christopher Nolan came in, he goes, I'm taking the same character, but really it's a different. So like, the way you brought this up, Adam, imagine Sony was meeting with other filmmakers to do a Venom reboot in a couple of years with like a new actor playing Eddie Brock Venom. What is it? What can you possibly do different? Another director is going to go, well, I want to do one that's really serious and really dark. And at that point you go, okay, but then Sony should just do that with the Tom Holland MCU. If they're already going to, if they're like, well, we really want to take it seriously now. Okay, well, then that's kind of like the comics. But then at the same time, these Tom Hardy movies have enough humor that even the Donny Cates run of Venom, there's great moments of humor in those stories. It's not humorless. It is not this really grim, super serious, taking itself too seriously, edgelord stuff. It's like, it is like a good, well-balanced story. It has emotion, that has heart. Even if I'm talking about Eddie Brock, who has been typically a kind of a thin, one-note supervillain character, but then over decades, people really gave him different layers. He got cancer at one point. He had to sort of reconcile with his family. He had a son that he didn't know about. And so all of the stuff that made the character way more interesting. Is a future filmmaker just going to do that? Again, part of that also includes these comic books I'm talking about. They're a part of the larger Marvel universe. So you kind of do need to have that access to the MCU. But if someone's just going to come in and do like a campier Venom, I'm like, this was already kind of camp. You can't. This has struck the balance well enough that any new iteration really should just be kind of like going from the Andrew Garfield to the Tom Holland Spider-Man. Those that tonal shift was not such a stark shift, but pun not intended, but the huge selling point was that Peter in the MCU is going to be younger and he's going to have access to that larger universe. So that is what Sony should do going forward with Venom, because I do love the character. But at the same time, I'm not trying to squash what these 3 movies have attempted because they're fun. You know, I like Woody Harrelson cast as Cletus Cassidy. Would I have done that if it was Carnage in the MCU? No. But, you know, I thought that he did a fun job, but I didn't like that movie. And now we have the third one, and now we have Null, and it might be Norman Reedus. I want to see that. I want to see these characters, you know, get attention and sort of respect. But yeah, I would have loved it if there was a longer, kind of a more epic version of the Venom Eddie Brock storyline. But really what I'm asking for is I should just reread the comics. They're there. So cannot recommend those enough. I'm not trying to like yuck this movie before it even comes out. We've talked about it before time and time again. It's just that Sony has not great track record. Like this has been the only one that's gotten a sequel. There's been no Morbius 2 so far for a reason. There's been no announcement of Madam Web 2. There's no announcement of a Kraven the Hunter 2. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if they're going to do anything. For this, it looks fun and silly and like a silly goose good time in the theater. And can I get some vibes that I got when I watched the first Venom film? Even with all of its limitations and even with the story that it set up, there were moments watching that movie where I'm like, man, this really does feel like Venom from the character that I like from the comics. This is cool. And then it would quickly go away and turn into something else and then come back and then going back and forth. So I'm looking forward to seeing this. But yeah, I just want people to read the Venom comics. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. And I hope that I just enjoyed a lot more than the second film. And I didn't even I didn't hate the second film at all. But I just did think, for me, it was a little bit of a step down from the first movie, and I just couldn't get into it and enjoy it as much. But yeah, I hope that this third one is great, and I hope that when I walk out of it, I really enjoy it, and I feel like, despite whatever my feelings are towards the second movie, that overall, it's a pretty okay trilogy of movies. It doesn't have to be the greatest. I don't think it'll end up being the worst because it already has a pretty good track record. It'll be somewhere in the middle with all the other stuff that Marvel has produced, or all the rights that they've sold off to other studios. It'll probably be somewhere in the middle, and that's totally fine. But whatever they do next, I hope that there's a little bit more consideration into how this character fits into a larger world. And, you know, who knows if Sony will be willing and open to do those sorts of things. They feel like they're a little selfish sometimes when it comes to trying to make these movies, and they don't necessarily want advice. Unless it's Spider-Man, everything else, they just want to do it themselves, which, you know, more power to you, I guess. But the track record ain't looking that good. So my bad. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. Well, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What are you looking forward to seeing in this film? How do you hope it concludes this story? And if it, for whatever reason, does set up anything for a future franchise or sequel or whatever, what do you think it could do? And maybe pass the baton to a different character? I don't know. We'll see. But let us know. Like Hector said, check out all the comic books. Check out everything else that we're watching. See you guys in the next one. Bye.
Heroes Reforged is gonna react. Heroes Reforged is gonna review. Heroes Reforged is gonna discuss. That's why we are watching.